Okay, second part of simplifying radicals is when we're going to put a variable in there. So simplifying square root of 54 into the seventh. You're going to split it up so that you have the square root of 54 and you also have the square root of into the seventh. So make sure you can recognize that we can split those two pieces apart. Well, the square root of 54 is what we have been practicing. So we're going to break up that square root of 54. So I broke it up as 6 and 9. 6 will factor into 2 and 3. Then I broke up square root of 9, so that factors into 3 and 3. So then I circled my pair, so that means that 1, 3 comes out, and these two have to stay in because they don't have any buddies. So for that piece, I would have 3 and square root of 6. Then I'm going to split up the square root of into the seventh. Now, you can do your factor tree. So take out one in, see what's left over. Take out one in, see what's left over. You can do that all the way to the end. My preference is I like to write it out like this. Because remember when we did greatest common factor and when we had n to the seventh, we wrote it out, meaning you had 7 n's that you were multiplying. I prefer this way because it's cleaner to me and I can see it better. This is too messy for me, so I can't see it. But if you want to keep that tree going, you're welcome to do this format as well. So I'm still going to circle my pairs that I get from the n to the seventh. So this means that I had 3 pairs, so an n comes out from each pair. So I would have 1, 2, 3 n's, and then this n has to stay underneath the radical. So here's what's happening. You have the 3 n's here that came out, but this one has to stay in because it didn't get circled. Then from over here, we also had the 3 that came out and the 2 and the 3 that stayed underneath the radical. So you have to remember to put the two pieces back together when you're done. So when I put the two pieces back together, I'm going to multiply things with radicals and things without. So I would multiply these 3 n's can be wrote as n cubed, and then I would multiply that 2 and 3, and then I would go ahead and put my pieces together. So things without a radical would go here, so 3n cubed, and we typically write the letters behind the numbers. And then for the same thing for the radicals, I put those two together, so it would be wrote as 6n underneath the radical. Again, we typically write the number first with the letter second. So this can be kind of messy, so you want to find a way that you can organize it so that you remember to do the numbers, remember to do the letters, but then remember to put them back together as well. So let's try one more here. So we have the square root of 192s squared. So I broke up the square root of 192. I did 2 and 96. 96 can be broke up as 2 and 48. 48 can be broke up as 2 and 24. 24 can be broke up as 2 and 12. 12 can be broke up as 3 and 4. 4 can be broke up as 2 and 2. So then I went through and circled all of my pairs. So I had 3 2's that I would write on the outside, and then I would have a 3 on the inside. So here's my 3 2's, here's my 3 that's underneath. Then I have the s squared, so I wrote out 2 s's. I circled my pair, that's it, so that means I have 1 s on the outside, no s's on the inside. So when I write it out, all of my circled pieces are on the outside, my uncircled pieces are on the inside. So when I times all those together, I would get 8s times the square root of 3. Alright, I want you to pause the video and see if you can do the next one with the square root of 50t to the 5th. Okay, so splitting up square root of 50, I did 2 and 25, and then 25 splits into 5 and 5. I circled my pair. Then I split up my t, so I wrote them out 5 times, circled my pairs. So that means I have a 5 on the outside and 2 t's from these two pairs. And then the stuff that I did not circle, I put on the inside, so 2 and t. So when I times all of that together and condense it, I get 5t to the second times the square root of 2t. Okay, let's try another one here. So what happens if they just put a number in front? Well, we already know what to do with that. You still do the exact same thing, but then at the end we need to come back and multiply by the 3 with its like terms. So I split it up. I did the 3 out in front, square root of 150, square root of b to the 8th. The 3 I'm not going to do anything with until I have simplified these two pieces. So I broke up the square root of 150. I did 5 and 30. 30 becomes 5 and 6. 6 becomes 2 and 3. I circled my pair, so I had a 5 that came out of the pair, and then the 2 and 3 has to stay underneath. My 3 is still out in front, so I decided to write that down on the same line so that I wouldn't forget about it, because that tends to be the error that some students happen. Then I wrote out my b to the 8th, so I wrote out 8 b's. I circled all of my pairs, so that means that I would have 4 pairs with none left over, so I would have 4 b's that I would write in my answer. So when I times these, I had this b to the 4th already from these b's because I had none that were left over. So I would times 3 times 5 and get 15. The b to the 4th follows suit because it doesn't have any radicals. And then this piece right here becomes square root of 6 when I times the 2 and 3. So once you've kind of simplified it, you want to group together the things with radicals and the things without. All right, you try 21. So on the next question on 21, I split it up, so I had -2, square root of 243, and square root of y cubed. 243, I split up into 3 and 81, and then 81 became 9 and 9. So I circled my pair, and I got a 9 out of there, but the 3 stays underneath the radical. Then I wrote out my y cubed, so I had 3 y's, so that means that I have 1 y that goes on the outside of the radical. So this -2 was in the original problem. Here comes my 9 that came from my pair. Here comes my y that came from my pair. Then underneath my radical, I still have this 3, and I still have that y. So then I condense it down, so I times all these together. So -18y, and then the square root of 3y. Okay, let's try one more. Let's see what happens if they put a letter out in front. You don't do anything different. You're still going to split it up and simplify and then condense it at the end. So I split it up, so -m, square root of 80, square root of m to the 9th. You're going to want to simplify the square root of 80. So you're going to, I did 8 and 10, and then 2 and 4, 4 splits into 2 and 2, 10 splits into 2 and 5. So then I circled my pair, so I had 2 2's that it came out. So from this pair and this pair, and then I had a 5 still underneath my radical sign. This -n was from the beginning, so I just brought it straight down so I wouldn't forget about it. Then I simplified my m to the 9th, so I wrote out 9 m's. I circled each pair, so I had 4 pairs, so that tells me that I had m to the 4th that came out because I had 4 m's, and then I had 1 m still left over underneath my radical sign. So then I condensed it down and multiplied all of the things with radicals. So square root of 5 and square root of m would become square root of 5m together underneath that radical sign. Times my whole numbers, so 2 times 2 is 4 with this negative put in front. And then combine my m. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I have m to the 5th for my final. Now I understand that these are pretty involved because you have to remember to do the letter side and you have to remember to do the number side. So please make sure you find some way that you can organize it to remember to put the pieces back together after you simplify.